and welcome to What You Need to Know for Worship Musicians, the essential music theory that you need to know to become a better worship team musician. We are going to be talking about rhythm. These are things that if you've been on the worship team for a long time, you've already been using all of these concepts. You just didn't know it yet. You didn't have any names for them. So hopefully for you, this is going to be really easy. For some of you, if you are a total beginner, you don't even know what a quarter note is. This might be a lot of information for you. If that's the case, then don't let it overwhelm you. Feel free to learn these things at your own pace. Of course, you want to be working towards improving. That's the goal, and that's the whole point of this series. But there's no rush. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and get into our first term and definition, note value. Note value is given as a fraction. So something like a quarter, or a half, or an eighth, or a whole, or something like that. We have note values that are given as fractions. Adding the values of all of the notes in a measure will always equal the measure value. So we have measures, and those measures are a certain number of note values. Next, we have dotted note values. Dotted note values are another kind of note value. Dotted note values are equal to the sum of a note value and or plus half of that same note value. So, for example, a dotted half note is equal to a half note plus 1/2 of a half note. 1/2 of a half note is 1/4 note. So in other words, one dotted half note is equal to 1/2 note plus 1/4 note, or 1.5 half notes. So the next term and definition is the subdivision. A subdivision is any note value smaller than the value of the beat, which the beat is divided into. So we have, say, a quarter note beat. The first subdivision of a quarter note beat is the next smallest note value, which is 1/8. And the second subdivision of that quarter note beat is the next smallest note value, which is 1/16. It's dividing into sub beats, if you want to think of it that way. Time signature. Time signature is a symbol describing the total number of a certain note value allowed in each measure. So 4/4 is 4 quarter notes. 6/8 is 6/8 notes. Something like, 12/16, there's 12/16 notes. 5/2, there's 5 half notes. Next, we have measure value. I've already mentioned that. That's the total sum of all of the note values which is allowed in a measure, as described by the time signature. So the time signature tells you we have 4 quarter notes in 4/4 time. The measure value is the total sum of those notes. These next couple definitions are a little bit of an advanced way of thinking about time signatures. These first two, we'll talk about these just together real quick. Simple and compound. Simple time is a time signature with a first subdivision of 2 parts. So 4/4 time, the first subdivision of those quarter notes is 2/8 notes. That's simple because you divide the beat into 2/8 notes. Compound time is something like 6/8 time. We divide the dotted quarter note beat into 3 equal parts. That's 3/8 notes. So the first subdivision of 6/8 is 8th notes as well, but there are 3 of them, as opposed to 4/4 where there are 2 8th notes per beat. Next, duple, triple, and quadruple. You can probably guess what these are. Duple time is 2 beats per measure. Triple time is 3 beats per measure. Quadruple time is 4 beats per measure. So when we combine these two categories together, we can have things like simple quadruple time. That's a simple time signature where the beats divide into halves. And then quadruple time, there's 4 beats in each measure. So that's a fancy way of saying 4/4 time. Simple quadruple. Something like compound duple. That's compound, the beat divides into thirds, and duple, there's 2 beats per measure. That is 6/8 time. Next, rhythmic solfege. This is when you replace the note values with syllables, just like we can do for the major scale with do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We can do the same thing with quarter notes and half notes and eighth notes and dotted notes. Next, we're almost done. Polyrhythm. two seemingly unrelated rhythms played together at the same time. Let's say we have two quarter notes, and these two quarter notes take up 1 second of time. Then let's say we have three quarter notes, and these three quarter notes also take up 1 whole second of time. Now let's say we play both of those at the same time. So in 1 second, we have both 2 beats and 3 beats happening at the same time. That is a polyrhythm. Last, we have syncopation. Syncopation is any subversion of the established beat. So there's all of our terms and definitions out of the way. Now let me give you a couple things to think about, a couple things to know. First, I want to say that playing the correct rhythm is more important than playing the correct notes. Next, I just want to say when preparing a challenging part of a song, practice the rhythm separately from the notes before combining the rhythm and the notes together. So if it's a really hard rhythm, maybe it's really fast, or it's a polyrhythm, you want to spend some time, just like tapping on your leg, or making some sort of noise with your mouth, or tapping your feet, or clapping, or listening along to the song and trying to mimic what that part is in the song. Next, I would like to let you know that you should have a warm-up routine every time you practice your voice or instrument, and this warm-up routine should include dedicated rhythm drills as well as drills for scales and chords. So when you're practicing your major scale, or you're practicing all of your chords, you're not necessarily going to practice that with a metronome, but when you're practicing rhythm, you are practicing things like playing specific note values, or playing specific polyrhythms, or playing specific time signatures, or something like that. For these kinds of practice, for rhythm practice, you need a metronome. Next, I just want to say the term overplaying refers to rhythm, not harmony. You're playing quarter notes when you should be playing whole notes. You're just playing too many notes. You should be having rests, and you should be holding off and not playing in certain part of the songs. Speaking of rests, that's the next one. The time between the notes is just as important as the notes themselves. When you are learning a song, maybe the first thing that you do when you're learning that song is figure out, where am I not going to play in this song? When am I just going to put my hands down and not play anything? Or as a background singer, when am I not going to sing background vocals? That is actually really important. If we have a breakdown part of the song, but say the keys player and the background singers keep going full volume, full force, it's going to kill the dynamics. Having places in the song where you don't sing or play is just as important as having places in the song where you do sing and play appropriately. The last thing that I want to say is a little bit nitpicky, but I think it's important because I think things like this are important. Time signatures do not tell you the number of beats. So you may have heard this before in your time. 4/4 has 4 beats in it, and 3/4 has 3 beats in it. That's completely wrong. All a time signature tells you is how many notes are in a measure. That's it. It doesn't tell us how many beats are in a measure. It doesn't tell us what kind of note gets a beat in a measure. It just tells us how many quarter notes are there, how many eighth notes are there. So time signatures don't tell you the number of beats, but certain time signatures are traditionally used to convey a certain number of beats. I don't think it's ever going to happen that 4/4 is going to mean anything other than 4 beats. 6/8 isn't going to mean anything other than 2 beats, because that's just how those time signatures have been used traditionally for hundreds and hundreds of years. 3/4 is always going to mean 3 beats, and your quarter note is going to be your beat, of course, because that's what there's 3 of in the time signature. Let's finish off by seeing what rhythmic note values and time signatures look like. Here are our note values. Here's a whole note, a half note, a quarter note, an eighth note, and a 16th note. And here's our standard time signatures down here. There are many different kinds of time signatures. This is just a couple of them. The ones that we're going to see pretty much 100% of the time is 4/4 and 6/8. Every once in a while, we might see a hymn in 3/4 or maybe 2/4. That might be like one song a year or something like that. And that does it for this first video of 3 in talking about rhythm. If this is all totally brand new to you, I'm going to say it again, don't let it overwhelm you. You have all the time in the world to learn all this stuff. But I just want to gently encourage you to start learning about it, to start improving it. Because if you don't know anything about it, How are you going to get better? Learning the things that you need to know. It's just a couple things, scales, chords, and rhythm. That's it. Of course, all those things take time. Maybe it'll take 10 years for you to learn all this stuff at your own pace, and that's okay. The whole point is that you are growing, that you are continuing to learn more, to become a better worship leader.